I'm Tiffany Alexander. I have a master's in education and counseling, and I'm a licensed professional counselor. We're going to talk about ADHD. ADHD in adults and children are quite different. We have a lot of adults having problems with ADD, ADHD symptoms that are undiagnosed, that they're showing up in treatment now and diagnosis. There's a lot of children that are misdiagnosed with ADD, ADHD symptoms. They're also sometimes they're anxious. It looks just like ADD with the hyperactivity, the inability to focus. An anxious child, has those same issues, but that's not ADD. The medicine's going to actually oftentimes make them feel worse than better. And a depressed child doesn't focus, can be very fidgety. Some of the same things that you see in ADHD, but that's not the issue either. So it's real important to find out which one of those is really the underlying cause when you're treating them, because the medications can actually be more harm than good for the child if you're mistreating them. So that's where therapy comes in, because therapy is the only way to really know what the underlying issues are. Medication is symptom management. Of course, we all know ADD and ADHD. The only difference between ADD and ADHD is the hyperactivity component. So you have the ADD child that's often daydreaming and thinking, their mind's off in the clouds and, that sort of thing. And then the ADHD child can't focus because they're really hyper and their body's really just kind of going too fast to really focus on things that are not really interesting. You need to take them to a professional. Because the inability to focus and the symptoms that would be a diagnosis for ADD or ADHD are the same symptoms that are seen in other situations, other diagnoses, and looking at the underlying reasons for those symptoms is the only way you can accurately diagnose a child and treat them properly. That's very important. The ADD is not a new diagnosis. It's a new diagnosis that we're treating and talking about, but it's not a new diagnosis by any stretch of the imagination. As frequent as my generation, we're not getting ADD diagnosis. Actually, myself, I did not get diagnosed until my late 20s. So children turn into adults hopefully one day, and so they run around thinking that something's wrong with them their whole life. They think that they should be able to do things that they're not able to do. Other people get annoyed with them on occasion because they're impulsive, or they have trouble with interrupting other people or things like that, which is simple basic ADD stuff, but they don't know it because nobody's looking for it. It's important for parents to get some help for their kids if their kids are having an issue, no matter what it is: ADD, depression, anxiety. It could be, hormonal. I mean, there's lots of things that can cause kids problems. It's important to find out what that is and work on a solution. Otherwise, the child will be isolated from other children, whereas, the peer group knows something's different. It just keeps on going. The child ends up thinking that something's wrong with them. They're dumb. They're not able to do what the other students are doing. A lot of kids say they hate to read because reading is boring, and ADD kids can't do things that are boring very well. When it's a biological process. A certain part of the brain doesn't light up in the ADD brain that does in other people's brain. You wouldn't say anybody was weak if they have diabetes and they taking insulin. Insulin is necessary for them to live. Well, your brain has necessary ways to function as well. So if you can take a medication and it makes your brain work just like everybody else's brain, then you're on the level playing field.